Well, welcome back, everybody, to the SCC. We're over in Europe, and we've got a great matchup for you to round out the day. My name is Dolson, and Agro, and maybe more importantly, Matt, are standing by to talk set number 3 with us. How you doing over there, Agro?
This is the best day ever. I get to cast some great smite and snuggle my dog while doing it. If this isn't good enough evidence, I've asked multiple times if I can take her into the office, and I've been told no. So maybe this is what the people need. You know, we'll get everybody ready. This is gonna be a good cast today, Dave. I can feel
freest quarantine of your life, right?
Oh, I mean, just the best. Yeah,
easiest day of your life. Belt Slap versus Freshly Forged though for set number 3 as we move into picks and bans. This should be, I think, a good matchup because you look at the lineup for Freshly Forged, and so long the conversation was why did it take them so long to move in?
Sure.
But the exact opposite is Belt Slap. They qualified almost immediately through. Arkkyl, Trixtank, Zyrhoes, Dzoni, and Julio. I mean, that is a stacked roster as well.
Yeah, Belt Slap's the team to beat in this region for sure. And I think a lot of people probably thought that it was going to be one of these two teams that was the team to beat. But in my mind, there's no question right now. We saw Freshly Forged lose earlier on today up against Snake Pit. They have not delivered as advertised. I think that if you're considering this Freshly Forged team anything but 5th in this region, then you probably haven't been paying attention. I think that they've got a lot of work to do right now for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you lose a tough one to start off our day here, and then you face, of course, the team to beat in Belt Slap. So it's going to be a tough way to maybe close out week number 1, though. Picks and bans on the board. Fafnir, maybe the one that jumps out most to me as banned out. Opens up the door for Kukulkan to come through. Kamazot's, though, notably banned out as well. Why maybe move over to that Fafnir ban?
Yeah, it's just because Kalas is a premier Fafnir player, one of the best at it in the entire world. Athena's right there with it as well. So when you're in that first pick slot, you have these opportunities to get some targeted bans, more so than just banning away the meta things, because it's up to you to dictate your composition a little bit more. And not only do you open up the Kukulkan pick for yourself, but you kind of force Freshly Forged to heavily prioritize Kalas' selection. And top 2 in Kumbhakarna is probably not exactly what Freshly Forged wanted to do today.
Yeah, that's an early Guardian pick there for them. They do get the Odin, though, who has been very important to a lot of team comps and a lot of wins that we've seen over the last few weeks. Jing Wei, though, I mean, you talk about a mid lane and a hunter that you're able to pair together. I would argue those two are near the top of the tier list, and Belt Slap, I think, are very happy with the way their first 3 picks have gone.
Absolutely. I mean, you can get good frontline pretty easily in Smite. I think there are a lot of Guardians that do the trick pretty well. And you can save those picks for a little bit later on. Getting your carries locked in early, it does allow Freshly Forged to figure out their backline dive a little bit earlier on. But when your picks have such a great peel as Kukulkan and Jing Wei do, that's not usually too big of an issue. You usually see that issue crop up whenever it's gods like Ullr that you're top 3ing. Sometimes he can get dove a little bit easily, right. So it's a little bit easier to counterpick him. Kukulkan, Jing Wei, those gods are going to do just fine no matter what the enemy picks.
And I like that Belt Slap are moving over. Yeah, this is the perfect cam. We need.
Good
the
work,
entire
right?
time.
Good work, man.
I like them actually moving in to ban out this Merlin, realizing that Freshly Forged haven't picked up their mid laner yet. And I'm not going to open up the door for any more soapboxing on this one, but a popular kind of next year pick has been this Scylla. So that'll be an interesting matchup up against Kukulkan.
It's one that can match its late game prowess, but it just takes much longer for Scylla to get there than Kukulkan. It's also a lot less safe because the damage, yes, she has the dash, but that's not always going to get you out of the danger that you need. It's a pretty long fire dash. Sometimes you'd rather just have a whole big burst of from the 2, so that Kukulkan has. I know Mifflin was pretty heavy on it last set. We'll see how it works out. I do like it a lot with the Kumbhakarna. It's great setup. You can guarantee I'm a monster off of that epic uppercut every time.
Are you worried about, Belt Slap's scaling, though? I mean, I look at that 5 stack there, and that seems like a pretty potent late game for Freshly Forged to have to deal with.
Yes, I do think that the late game is really, really strong. It's just a matter of getting there. So I'd expect Belt Slap to really lean on that right side of the map to try and get there early on, because that Kukulkan is going to have pressure. You can get a little bit of pressure through him. The Odin can get bullied out a little bit in the early game. Right. And Freshly Forged going with Bastet, a scaling jungler, not an early game jungler, I think actually hurts them more. I think I would have liked to see Freshly Forged just try and beat up on Belt Slap in the early game and not try and match their late game prowess.
Well, why don't we dip a toe into game number 1 and see if Belt Slap is able to move their way into that late game.
Okay,
obviously, the favorite team here in this matchup, and I'm excited to see how they're able to kind of pivot some of this potential that they have on their side. I mean, it's been so long, I feel like, since we've been able to see Belt Slap play. I mean, for good reason, since, you know, they qualified so early on. It's cohesion is kind of the way that I look at this lineup, and I think that if there's a team who's going to draft this late game composition and make it work, it's probably these guys.
I agree. I think that this is a team that, after qualifying in week 1, you wonder how much practice they've really gone through, but I think that they are the team to beat regardless, just based on how they looked in week 1. This is our first time seeing them in a little bit, though. Let's see how they perform.
There's a bit of a collapse around this purple buff. Deathwalker has that stun, level 1. Arkkyl has to move his way back. Trixtank is going to regress as well. They might be able to collapse on this purple buff and maybe able to steal it away. So Freshly Forged do grab purple buff number 1 here in this game. Trixtank is just going to poke some damage. That's an early invade and maybe a small lead for Freshly Forged.
Now the question is, what are Belt Slap going to get on that right-hand side? And because of the slow clear from Dzoni and the fact that Julio started in lane, as you would expect, he's not going to be able to invade that blue buff. So really not a whole big loss at all for Freshly Forged. What Belt Slap should be trying to do is take advantage of the fact that Deathwalker used a very long cooldown relic in TP and maybe try and poke him out.
Yeah.
But Dzoni doesn't do that particularly well on the Kali, so it's kind of up to Julio. If I'm Julio, I'm playing as aggressively as I possibly can, try and get those transforms early on. But Deathwalker is a very seasoned member of the Smite Pro League, really knows his stuff over there in the solo lane. So I'd anticipate he's going to play pretty cautiously during this game.
We call that a net win for the Freshly Forged duo lane there. So off to a small lead of maybe about a half level is the last that I saw over on Arkkyl. But it's kind of how can you capitalize on that is the question. They just cycled back, got their second purple buff, completely back on refresh. But Belt Slap, you know, they're not super worried, I don't think, especially in that lane. You got a Jing way. If you get poked out, you just make your way right back on in. So maybe disruptive in that early game, but it's not necessarily going to put them in a massive deficit, I don't think.
No, not at all. Losing that purple buff level 1 certainly hurts, but it's not the end of the world by any means, because you can easily recover and just make sure you're getting your waves as much as you can. This is not a high pressure kill lane necessarily between Xbalanque and Kumbhakarna, so Arkkyl is going to be pretty free to farm. And as long as your jungler rotates over for your next purple buff, even your mid laner with someone who has pressure like Kukulkan can probably rotate over and help secure that. Losing 1 buff really ever is not a huge deal. It's losing 2 in a row, 3 in a row, 4 in a row, where it really starts to lose you games. It's okay to lose 1. It's much better to lose the buff and not die and just give it up and then get there for the next one than try and lose your first blood bounty for 1 sort of buff.
Well, purple buff number 2 is respawning here for Belt Slap. Neither lane has had to move back just yet. Maybe something to keep your eyes on there. That's a good stun down onto Callus, and the silence as well is going to follow it up, but just going to be able to backpedal themselves there. Rotation coming in, though, from Dzoni. Might be looking for the roundabout gank from this Kali. Half health on Joshy. A little bit low on Callus as well, but it looks like they're maybe privy to it, and Dzoni is going to just move himself back.
And Dzoni just being on this side of the map is all Belt Slap really need. That threat of the Kali coming over and helping secure this purple, having a fight that's 3-on-2 in Belt Slap's favor is a huge deal in their side. So Freshly Forged aren't able to get that second purple buff in a row. And as I highlighted, losing 1, not a big deal. You get the second, everything is peachy. Sure, Trixtank's a little bit down. Sure, Arkkyl is down about 30 XP per minute. That's 1 minion. That's really not going to do a whole lot for Freshly Forged. That's not going to be enough to spring the game in their favor. In fact, it's Belt Slap who has a slight gold lead right now, likely because Johnny's able to get a good amount of solo farm on that right-hand side, as is Julio, and those two have been able to hold down that early game right-hand side nicely.
Yeah, we were curious if they were going to be able to capitalize on that, the early teleport used by Deathwalker, and the answer largely is no. You didn't necessarily force him back and put him that far behind, but Julio did, as you point out, carve himself out about a half-level lead up there in that short lane. So props to them. I mean, sort of a wet noodle fight is maybe the way we sometimes describe it between these two. Plenty of sustain, plenty of shielding and healing for both of these guys. Aside from a gank, I'm not sure there's all all that much kill potential here.
No, there really isn't. I mean, Deathwalker has Cage. It's pretty hard for Kukulkan to deal with that as long as he's in transformation, which is really the only time he has kill potential on you anyways. So it's a bit of a catch-22 for Julio. I can't kill him unless I rage transform, but I can't get out of the cage once I rage transform. So Deathwalker can play this matchup very patiently, just hold Cage whenever until he's in danger, drop it, and then walk away. And I'm sure both junglers are pretty happy that their solo laners are chilling and not really trying to solo one another, because both of these junglers really want to wait until they get their itemization online. Two different types of itemization though for these junglers. Kali, you're going to be looking for that auto attack based itemization, executioner, chin size, maybe an Odysseus bow we've seen thrown in there quite a bit, which I like.
Oh, Spirit of the Nine Winds flies through. Plenty of damage on the Kali's Trixtank. Has him locked in, but an epic uppercut heals for him just a little bit. I'm a Monster crashes down. They haven't finished off the kill on the Kalis just yet, but that's a big stun down into the back line. Dzoni has rejoined the fight, and that's first blood. Over to Belt Slap. The chase still continues, though, with Faeles trying to peel himself out of this one. PrettyPriMe. He's going to back off as well. Enough collapse could be there. Dzoni does have the jump, and they will disengage with one kill under their belt.
Really close to being very clean on those oracles. I like Zyrhoes using that ultimate liberally. It's a low cooldown, and you get a lot of benefit from landing that. And good setup from Trixtank, but Trix maybe a little bit late on those Dharmic Pillars. If he would have prot-shredded for Zyrhoes before that ultimate landed, that would have been a different story, wouldn't have required nearly as much commitment. But at the end of the day, no harm, no foul. First blood still for better.
Watch out, Arkkyl, though. Faeles is going to return on the gank here. Airstrike is going to be used to disengage, but he gets locked down. Ultimate out from Faeles. Just a little bit more damage, and he's got it. And this one is suddenly tied up kills-wise. Still about 1,000 gold lead. That's now the jungler on the board for Freshly Forged.
A little bit of an odd decision there by Arkkyl. He doesn't go into the jungle with that secondary landing part of Airstrike. Maybe he was a little bit too far into the wall and didn't take his time, but the only way that Arkkyl dies there is by getting rooted by that cat. Had purification beads, decided not to use them. I understand not wanting to use the beads necessarily, but I think he could have put himself in a spot where he didn't need to have that dilemma at all. Bit of a strange death.
Oh, Kalis, he sees himself a fight underneath this tier 1 tower. Zyrhoes just shrugs that one off and backs his way away. It is flash, or blink rather, used there from Kalis. 100 seconds left on that cooldown. I guess you admire the aggression there to just try to find something.
Sure, but maybe not paying attention to where Dzoni was in that engagement, because he's enough to just keep Prime away. I like the idea that he knows Zyrhoes has no beads, so that should be a guaranteed kill coming down off that epic uppercut, but Dzoni does the right thing. When your backliner gets epic uppercutted, or Naja ulted, or Heim ulted, anything that's going to banish them and set up his team to really step up and kill your teammate, all you can do is zone away the damage. Don't worry about the tank. They already did their thing. Zone away the damage.
Arkkyl, no ultimate. Still has the beads, but won't have the time to use it as Faeles jumps back in and finds his second kill in this game. So much damage from that Ganesha, though, is going to set up a great fight here as Dzoni rotates back through. This is a 1-for-1 fight. Both junglers, they both have both of the kills for their team.
That's a really good silence there by Trixtank. He used the Dharmic Pillars to slow down Faeles, make sure that he can't get away. That actually forces Faeles into the Purification Beads, and as soon as those are on cooldown, Trixtank knows that he's got the CC chain there and ready. Dzoni not going to be able to, or you just want to make sure that Faeles can't return too much damage before he falls.
Looks like Oracles is going to be picked up here. It's the game of the jungler seemingly in the long lane this time around. Most of the rotations have been through there. One of the deaths for Freshly Forged was on Joshy there, and then both, of course, on Arkkyl. So a touch unfortunate there, but I mean, we talked about this in picks and bans. You look at two teams that are going to want to get these junglers scaling. Both of them have done that in spades early on here.
Both kills on both junglers, which is ideal. So you're really looking for who's going to be able to leverage their early game spike a little bit better. And this is something that we saw the last time Kali became a little bit meta. Some players started going for this Crusher. Back in the day, there was no sort of bridge item like Crusher, nothing that helped your early power spike. It was all just, I'm useless until I'm 5 items deep. Usually this was a Hasten Katana in this slot. But this adjustment that a lot of Kali players made into Crusher, I think changed the character for the better. It's just everything this character wants. It's power, it's attack speed, and it's pen. And yes, it doesn't help with your incredible auto chain. It doesn't make sure that you're dealing maximum damage 6 items deep right away, but it makes you're a character with this item as Kali. This is a strong jungler right now. You will be surprised how much damage Lash does to you. That incense power buff is really, really strong. This turns Kali from don't even look at me until I'm 4 items in to, okay, I can actually contribute in team fights starting at 10 minutes, which does slow down her overall power curve, but I think makes it so much smoother. I like this quite a bit. Normally, if this were that old Hasten Katana build, you'd have the Transcendence for Faeles, and you'd say Bastet is going to do 3x more than what Johnny's going to be able to provide. With this Crusher pickup, I think that Johnny's not that much behind in terms of his potential impact.
There are lots of conversations around Bastet and Kali, respectively. I think this is a very interesting matchup to watch, as a matter of fact. I mean, for all the reasons that you just point out. But, I mean, with Bastet kind of in and out of the meta right now, picks and bans here and there. I mean, 2 gods that have the same idea maybe towards that late game. So I'm excited to see how both teams are able to kind of convert that over. But we sort of mentioned a lot of the action has been around this duo lane in that long lane. And I think that's kind of a nice segue. We've seen Kumbhakarna kind of here and there, freshly Forge opting for the first pick there, but Ganesha has been kind of few and far between.
I mean, Ganesha is going to take his time and kind of get to team fights when they come to him. He's usually not the best initiator, but really good at counter initiation, at turning team fights, because his ultimate is really solid at killing tanks, because most of the time tanks slow themselves down or root themselves in place. They're gonna sit on top of your carry pretty effectively, and dropping a Dharmic Pillars on someone who's immobilized even for a little bit, especially a tank that doesn't have beads or anything to get away, really shreds their procs very quickly. It makes it very easy for the backliners to turn and burn on that tank. Plus the silence is really good against characters who doesn't have beads. So I don't mind Trixtank's playstyle so far. Wait for the Bastet to try and get in, then I'm gonna ohm as soon as she lands and pounce. That way she can't jump back unless she burns the beads. Maybe I drop Dharmic Pillars on where she's going to jump back to as I'm ohming, so that way that she has nowhere to go at all. Even if she uses beads and jumps back, she's going to be landing right on top of the Bug Zapper.
And plenty of damage there, a sneaky amount of damage. I mean, all the things that you just mentioned, that stacks up, and if you're able to lock a couple down...
Yeah, Dave, why am I preaching to you about Ganesh? You should be teaching me.
Kind of snowball in the wrong direction, especially if you look at maybe some of these fights that you'll be having near the objectives. You talk about maybe trying to secure Gold Fury, things like that. You know, these jungle fights are going to be so important, and that's a great area for the Ganesh fight.
Looking for something on the left-hand side again. Arkkyl drops off that ultimate. That bleed gonna take care of back to base yet, so didn't have the Aegis at level 12, and Faeles makes him pay quickly. Nice job.
Arkkyl is sad right now. Faeles has 3 kills. Arkkyl has 3 deaths. This has been about as cut and dry as you can get, I think, if you're Faeles. You just keep ganking that long lane. You know, Arkkyl has had to burn the ultimate. This time he burns the beads, but enough bleed on the end of it is going to put Faeles now 1 kill ahead of Johnny, his counterpart. This Bastet was scary, but is continuing to kind of scale up a little bit more, and is going to get even more scary.
It's one of the few gods that could actually gank Jing, and that does put some value on Bastet in my mind, because that pounce gives you so much range, and the extra movement speed while you can still bounce back on that pounce that you get is very, very helpful. Then your root is a really, really long range, sending out those cats. That can cover a whole lot of distance. So most of the time, Jing is ungankable territory. No assassin can really keep up, except maybe Bastet. She's one of the few that can, so I wouldn't be surprised to see more of this sort of matchup. It can go poorly for Bastet, though. I mean, that knock-up, if someone puts that down, if the Jing is ready for that pounce and knocks you up right away and can return damage quickly, this fight is not always going to go in Faeles' way, but for the time being, he's done a great job of identifying.
Sure, and I think that maybe for all those reasons, that's kind of why it stood out to me. I mean, traditionally, Jing so easy to kind of get out of a lot of those ganks, but Arkkyl is had a bit of a tougher time than maybe you would expect through 15 or so minutes of this game. Belt Slap, despite being down a kill, have kind of carved themselves out about a 1,000 and some change gold lead here. So, you know what, while things maybe on the scoreboard are not quite looking in your favor, if you look at the top right-hand corner there, top left, Belt Slap, happy about it. Things could extend a little bit further here. Mid lane engagement maybe starting. I think smartly Kalas is going to back himself off.
That was beautiful by Trixtank. Kalas was looking for that blink uppercut again. He got the blink off, but then immediately got silenced by Trix on that initiation. Quick reaction on that Ohm, and that's one of the best feelings as Ganesh, just hard stuffing.
Oh yeah,
initiation. That's what you play the Ganesh for, right, Dave? I don't need to tell you.
Yeah, no, you don't need to tell me at all, and that's exactly why Trixtank picks up this Ganesh. Gold Fury started though, starting to get low. Kalas stunned down, Beltslap able to secure it. He wants to find this initiation though. Epic uppercut lands down onto Arkkyl. That's the Dharmic Pillars from Trixtank to try to provide some peel to the rest of his backline, but Freshly Forged barely 5 men strong. Spirit of the Nine Gonzala catches so much damage back onto Joshy. He's going to use his ultimate to try to disengage from this one. Julio has that transformation, and suddenly it's Beltslap are the ones who are attacking, and they're going to find themselves underneath this tier 2 tower. Julio has found a little bit of CC, but he's going to turn his tail. Somehow, nobody from Freshly Forged dies this time. Yeah, but it was close. Great ultimate by Zyrhoes, and that's exactly what I'm talking about when I talk about Ganesh having a good disengage. It's really, really easy for Trixtank to separate that team fight with the Dharmic Pillars. And his, again, silence on Kalas, trying to dash in and interrupt that gold fury pool. Trixtank has played really, really well so far this game on this elephant. And then Julio's able to rotate in, make a good impact. This is exactly what you want to see from Beltslap. It's just a matter of if Arkkyl can stay safe on this Jing Wei. That's the real question. Even with these deaths though, Dave, he's right. Pretty even. Same in XP. It's not such a bad position. I mean, right, he's got his fully stacked Devourer's Gauntlet. He's got the Rage started up here, and then just the properties of that Jing Wei kit. I mean, you look at 0-3-2. That's a Jing Wei that still hurts very bad, especially in some of those fights. You know, if you're able to grab a couple of kills on the back end of a good Zyrhoes ult, suddenly a 0-3-2 Jing Wei has maybe a few kills. Easily, especially once that Rage starts getting stacked. It's pretty easy for it to snowball in Beltslap's favor. It's something that Freshly Forged is going to have to at least consider. Spectral Armor should be on the menu at some point, or at least a mid-guard. Yeah. Mystical Mail, though, picked up, interestingly enough, with those solo laners. Zyrhoes caught down, maybe back to that in just a second. Uses the ultimate, but he's got 3 members of Freshly Forged looking at him. No escape this time. Kill number 4, not only for Freshly Forged, but for Faeles as well. Just the wrong position for Zyrhoes. Trixtank wasn't on the map, so without your support, it's a little bit difficult to try and get in and get those mid-harpies. I don't see a whole lot of wards on that right-hand mini-map, so trying to path down to get those right-side mids, a risky endeavor, even with your support, but without him, pretty much a death sentence. Now, the tier 2 tower, potentially under some duress by Dzoni, but looks like they'll kind of think twice about that one. Trixtank has Faeles kind of working close by. This might just be kind of vision confirm on the Freshly Forged side of the jungle, and it looks like it'll be just that. Kind of back to that point, though, before Zyrhoes was picked off there. Mystical Mail picked up here for both of those solo laners. Sort of interesting, I think, to see both, especially that early on in the build. I like it for both of them. These are 2 warriors that leverage Mystical Mail very well for 2 different reasons. For Kukulkan, he basically has Mystical Mail built into the kit. When you use Vent Anger, you're pulsing out damage around you. That's the Mystical Mail passive, though that is physical and not magical like Mystical Mail. And when you're in that Rage transform, you're constantly pulsing out that damage, so you get to double up effectively with the Mystical Mail. It's been a pretty common item for Kukulkan since his release. But on the other side, for Deathwalker, you don't have it in the kit necessarily, but locking someone in the cage with you, you're going to be auto-attacking them, you're going to be doing what you can. Sometimes you just need that little bit of extra damage. Well, they can't run away from you in the cage. You're going to be guaranteeing Mystical Mail picks that entire time. And coming into Season 7, of course, the cost reduction for Mystical Mail, I'm not surprised at all to see both of these solo laners picking it up. It's not an every warrior sort of pickup in my mind, but for these 2 warriors in particular, I think it makes a ton of sense. At what point, though, I mean, this has been a very quiet, maybe quiet game by and large. It's 20 minutes in and we have 6 kills total. You look at Deathwalker and Julio haven't really rotated down for a lot of these fights, though. Kalas locked up. Dzoni gonna be silenced out. Good root from PrettyPriMe this time, but not enough damage to clean up Dzoni. It's a good ultimate from Trixtank as well to provide some peel for his jungler, who's moving his way out of this fight. Joshy, ultimate up, ultimate down. No kills just yet. Dzoni actually looking to re-engage onto Joshy, who finds the kill instead. Arkkyl is going to swoop his way right on through. He's got a low health Kalas in the back line. Suddenly that rage could find itself a couple of stacks, but Faeles gets out alive. Trixtank with the big silence. This fight is sloppy. So many low health bars, but they turn around onto PrettyPriMe. He's going to be the lowly death there for Freshly Forged, and Dzoni, he's the one who falls for belt slap.
Man, French teammates not exactly getting the best rep right now. First you got Rudy Gobert, and now you've got Arkkyl body blocking Dzoni into a couple auto attacks. He body blocked him into one auto, and then the branching bola off of Joshy hitting him with the second auto is actually what kills Dzoni.
That's brutal.
A little bit unfortunate for the kid.
Well, Arkkyl, despite not grabbing himself a full kill in that one, does get his first stack on that rage. Freshly Forged asked when the solo laners maybe are going to start rotating into this fight. The answer is now. But I think Deathwalker will think twice and does so about jumping in onto that one. Oni Fury is up and is warded here by Freshly Forged. 5 strong, except for PrettyPriMe, who's still about 5 or so seconds away. But I like seeing this. Now Deathwalker starting to get more involved in these fights. Julio is as well. And I think this is going to be a pretty contested Fury.
Should be. Oni Fury is very strong at this point in the game. It can pretty easily open up a Pyromancer push because you know that the enemy team has to deal with Oni waves. You can go towards that Pyromancer as a team, and either the enemy team loses a couple towers or you take Pyromancer either way. So it's kind of a win-win situation for the team that gets it. A win more Fury in this sort of instance. And it looks like Freshly Forged is in a pretty good spot, but it's basically all on Faeles. What can Faeles do in this team fight? Because he has the Brawler's Beat Stick now, some good anti-heal. That'll stop Dzoni from waterfalling these fights. And the Bloodforge, so maybe it can be Faeles that starts to chain kills together and keeps the dive going.
Yeah, I mean, all of the kills for Freshly Forged, save one that Joshy has on Faeles, whereas there's, more assists kind of spread out evenly over the belt slap side. Blink through, epic uppercut from Faeles, nice crush, stacked down onto Arkkyl. Poor guy falls for his 4th time this game. There's not much you can do about that.
Just no relics for him. He's going to die in that position no matter what. Really good timing by Kalas because there is a mini knock-up from that epic uppercut. Jing can actually get her big dash off of it. Nice job to make sure that gets interrupted pretty clean.
Now though, Dzoni in the backline on Faeles, just going to leap himself over that wall. Deathwalker on the chase. Executes that spear a little bit early and doesn't grab the stun. Maybe this time though he's able to turn it around. Dzoni has his ult if need be, but I don't think you're going to chunk through that much damage. Great stun though. Maybe get himself out of this one and a jump as well. Spear just short of the damage needed. Dzoni, I think he escapes from this one. Fury though is pulled by Freshly Forged and they're going to back themselves off just a bit. Kind of a roundabout gank though from Trixtank. Has his ultimate available as well. You catch a few. That Ganesha ult, and it's going to hurt plenty. It looks like Freshly Forged back themselves off this time around.
Knowing that Zyrhoes has his ult while PrettyPriMe doesn't have his, means it's pretty risky business to try and pull this Fury and out-secure a Kukulkan Spirit of the 9 Winds. That's not happening cleanly the majority of the time, so I like the decision to back it up from Freshly Forged. Worth noting, by the way, this Breastplate of Valor by Zyrhoes. We've seen this a little bit more on Kukulkan players as of late. I like it quite a bit against the Bastet for Faeles, especially with Faeles getting off to such a good lead. This item doesn't have any power built in, but 300 mana on it. You add that to the Book of Thoth passive that converts mana into power. And that sounds pretty familiar because that's also Kukulkan's passive that converts mana into power. So he's double dipping on that item. He's getting power off of it basically twice and turning it from a all defense item into a hybrid item. It makes it a lot harder for Faeles to dive him. The one thing I will say is that Zyrhoes and Prime are both heavily lacking in penetration, only 10% for each of them. And that means that both Deathwalker and Kalas, and by extension Julio and Trixtank, are effectively unkillable. A little bit easier for Prime as Crush does have that percent pen built in, but still don't like their odds against these frontliners. They have to be trying to find backliners with their damage.
And kind of on the flip side of the coin, you look at some defensive items. Kalas did end up picking up that Spectral Armor. Arkkyl, even with just 1 stack on his Rage, he's got the Deathbringer now as well, and that Jing is going to be hurting just fine in a lot of these fights, especially now that you're starting to get to this point, you're 24 minutes into the game. You're going to see a lot more of these Fury dances, and these fights are going to be explosive.
Dave, this might be your first initiation into the old EU playstyle, man. I mean, 9 kills in 24 minutes. We spend a long time having tea and crumpets around a Fury for about 5 minutes every so often. We talk about the tube and other English things that they say.
Mind the gap, right?
Right, mind the gap. That's big. Got to be minding that gap. That's huge. But this is the EU playstyle. They want it. They are very accustomed to taking these slower games, especially the really experienced players, Prime, Trixtank. This is exactly the type of thing they're really used to doing. So don't be surprised that these games usually play out like this. We'll probably have another 5 minutes-ish of just talking about, I don't know, the lift, and then it'll all explode very, very quickly. These games usually tend to explode wide open. Whatever team wins that first team fight usually ends up running away with these.
Well, you know, maybe this is a self-answering question. Obviously, you're not surprised because you just explained that this is sort of that big play style, but BeltSlap have themselves a 3,000 gold lead. I mean, they've been doing plenty of damage in a lot of these fights. I guess I'm still raising my eyebrows just a little bit that they're so passive kind of going into this. Not that Freshly Forged are so far behind, but I think BeltSlap have enough of a lead to maybe win a fight, and you might get to see if that holds true here. Trixtank's going to get locked down, and not just, and right back to either side of that Fury Pit go both teams.
It's just the fact that both mages have great secure. Normally, the team that has better secure has the initiation, the priority, so to speak, on lock. But with both teams having big secure mages, it's difficult to try and find those windows. Both teams want to take the fight more so than the other.
First big ultimate is used, and that's Deathwalker, who tried to engage on Dzoni, but he didn't do enough damage to force him to go back. And Deathwalker back in base now as well. This is a 5v4, and then the BeltSlap, Spirit of the Nine Winds, flies through. PrettyPriMe chunked down. Trixtank is zoning out 3 members all on his own, and the rest of BeltSlap are going to move themselves back onto the other side of the Fury Pit as Dzoni leaps himself over as well. No kills, but enough space to grab themselves that Fury.
And that's usually what happens. One team just kind of loses their cool, not in a bad way even. They just go, I'm kind of sick of this. Something is going to happen here one way or the other. Bit of a miscommunication though with that Xbalanque ultimate. Looks like Fury got reset. That made sure Hero's ultimate didn't end up securing it. But at the end of the day, BeltSlap walked away with it.
They grab themselves the Pyromancer as well. So obviously the next large and the only real large respawning objective left on the map is that Fire Giant. And Ryan, I can't imagine it differs that much from what we just saw with the Fury, and maybe even more so because FG is such an important objective. But you do have the Oni waves, honestly, with BeltSlap, so if you can get those waves pushing, somebody's going to have to rotate and maybe deal with that long lane and deal with the middle lane as well.
Those are going to be priority points for BeltSlap. If they see Freshly Forged over there in numbers in the left side or in mid, they might try and pull fire, but even that doesn't seem like the wisest of plans. It's just so sketchy whenever you've got a Xbalanque ultimate because it throws off all of your information. You don't know anything that's happening during that time. And so trying to pull an objective on the 5v3, we got a power play, we can just have good enough communication and we've got good vision so we know exactly when we need to secure. All that goes out the window very quickly in that Xbalanque ultimate.
They're pinging the long lane because Deathwalker isn't there, but he has that upgraded teleport, so he's going to be able to move right back in onto a ward. Spirit of the Nine Winds catches down on the Kalas, and Deathwalker, he's here fresh off the teleport, and he drops down the cage to lock in a few, but Trixtank, he's doing the same as well. Suddenly, Faeles melted down, has to move out of this fight. Arkkyl has a bit of a bodyguard status, moving himself back away from Deathwalker, as Julio is going to do some zoning for himself as well. Low health bars for BeltSlap. Freshly Forged, the important numbers is they're down to 4.
They are, but PrettyPriMe and Joshy both very, very healthy at this point. Not a lot of healthy health bars for BeltSlap, so they're going to have to reset in this moment. I think that a big thing that BeltSlap tried to do there, obviously, is blowing up Kalas. They try and full commit with Zyrhoes' ultimate, but Zyrhoes actually leads with Squall, or Zephyr, used to be Squall, now called Zephyr, the first ability for Kukulkan. And normally that's not a big deal, but it is when you have Obsidian Shard. Obsidian Shard is your next ability gets an extra 10% 10. You want to be leading with either that Whirlwind or the ultimate if you're trying to take it on.
Well, with Faeles back in base, this could be a great fight for BeltSlap, but it starts out just that way. Deathwalker, he's gone as well. Alice, so low health. Trixtank is going to move in, look to maybe finish off the kill. Abilities used for Peel there, and they're not able to grab the kill on the Alice. One more time, they have themselves a 5v4 advantage with Fire Giant started. Trixtank doing his best, just play zone.
Joshy gonna dash in though, Trix getting low.
Oh no!
Down about half HP. Joshy, I don't know about all that, King.
Felt so confident there for just a second, and his hopes and dreams are dashed to the wayside as he was back in base for 50 or so seconds. Faeles is here, Fire Giant still pulled out. Dzoni, he's taking too much damage. It's gonna be a beautiful fight for Faeles. he wants to try to turn something around. He does grab one onto Zyrhoes, but that might be all she wrote. His Fire Giant is going to heal itself back up. And 4 members of Belt Slap are going to get out safely, with Joshy the only one falling in the most recent engagement.
That's actually a big play by Prime. It may not seem on the surface like Prime made the difference there, but his I'm a Monster over the wall, chunking down multiple members of Belt Slap, including Zyrhoes, makes it so that they cannot continue on that Fire Giant easily. And it looks like that call wasn't really communicated particularly well, that Zyrhoes was too weak and that we shouldn't be on fire anymore. Because Arkkyl stays on it, Dzoni gets on it again. Just a bit too ambitious with health bars that low, and fails the pretty easy cleanup on the Zyrhoes.
Well, do things get maybe more interesting now? The Fury up in about a minute. I mean, the dance obviously is over by the Fire Giant. I don't know if either team is going to feel all that comfortable leaving FG for the Fury here. But, you know, maybe that opens the door to somebody moving over and sneaking away the Fury that's up in 40 seconds.
Certainly a possibility, and that Primal Fury is really valuable at a point like this, because that extra 7% damage and the fact that you take 7% less damage could be the difference maker in a fight like that around the Fire Giant, especially now that it's enhanced. It's going to be that much harder to get a clean team fight around it without any sort of shenanigans happening on these initiations.
You got 5k gold lead for Belt Slap. Everyone save the Guardians at level 20. So the XP differential not quite as important here 30 minutes into this game, and gold-wise as well. Maybe call everyone about close to even. Some good poke damage onto Julio. I don't think he expected to take quite that much, and he has to move himself backwards. Faeles maybe overextends just a little bit too much. Into the passive B goes as Dzoni. He completes this kill. That's so much engaged. That's what Freshly Forged have been looking for. They've been looking for that Kumbhakarna, and now he's dead.
That was a great start by PrettyPriMe. Good route into a lot of damage, but then Trixtank again sets up Kalas. Kalas doesn't get anything off. Didn't get off his ultimate, didn't get it off a relic. And that's where that Ganesh silence absolutely ruins tanks. It's so hard to play the game whenever you've got a Ganesh on the other side as a frontliner.
The dance continues, but a little bit more aggressively this time onto the Fire Giant. Pyromancer secured by Belt Slap. Freshly Forged down to 4 members and a half health Deathwalker, so something to be mindful of is that Odin looks to jump himself into these fights. Zyrhoes has got some good peel here. Suddenly, Belt Slap, they've turned their attention to the lines of Freshly Forged. Spear of the 9 Winds flies through, doesn't find any kills. PrettyPriMe, he's caught in the pit with Dzoni, and he cleans up that kill. Faeles is back on respawn, so the number still is a 4v5, but this time you're missing your mid laner.
And that's huge, because that's the contest that is right there with Zyrhoes. That's that confirm that will give Belt Slap some hesitancy. But with Zyrhoes ultimate being down, they also don't have that guaranteed confirm for this objective. Get the reset though. I mean, you've got 35 seconds, no need to rush it. Zyrhoes has plenty of cooldown, 30% between the Breastplate of Valor and those Shoes of Focus. Take your time. I like this call. This is good patience by Belt Slap.
On Fire Giant, but Joshy is securing that red buff, and Arkkyl is going to just plug away so much damage onto this FG. Faeles is back from base and close by. Faeles is as well back behind the pit. Could be looking for the sneaky steal here. Locked down is Faeles, and he's turned his attention back onto Arkkyl. Trixtank has a good enough ultimate to provide some heal. Spear to the 9 Winds flies through. Plenty of damage over onto Faeles, and Joshy absolutely melted by Dzoni in the backline as Deathwalker picks up the kill onto Zyrhoes. So mid laner down now from Belt Slap as the scales rather maybe tilting for Freshly Forged. Talk about objective secure, but Faeles. No escape from this one. Numbers right back for Belt Slap. They got a 4v3.
That's big to get Zyrhoes off the board, though, by Freshly Forged. That's a good lesson to all Smite players. If we know we can't contest if they've got great secure, let's just take the secure out of the picture, and now we've got a better fight for ourselves. Problem is, I don't have the time to really get into secure himself.
Deathwalker was looking for a potential steal there and is able to jump himself out, so at least he doesn't die. But it did get Belt Slap off the Fire Giant. That is now back to about full health, but they don't care. They found a kill on a Deathwalker, and PrettyPriMe right back from base, right back into the pit with Belt Slap, and Julio resets that death timer for him. Faeles is going to move his way back beneath this tier 2, but that's the big fight. That's what you look for if you're Belt Slap.
I mean, Julio has just had better impact so far on this game than Deathwalker. You top 2 the Odin, you feel like that's the pick, and you feel like that's the god that everyone is scared of, so let's pick it early and give it to one of our impactful players. it's just not working out too well for Deathwalker so far. He just has not been able to find impactful cages. They pick it early enough in the draft. There's a lot of picks that can get out of it. The Ganesha has caused problems for not only Deathwalker, but also Kalas so far in this game. And again, Belt Slap, go back to Fire Giant, willing to try it for the millionth time.
Well, the third time looks to be the charm here for Belt Slap, is only 3 members of Freshly Forged alive, and Joshy, I guess I bring it up, he is going to be able to sneak away that Primal Fury, but that leaves 2 members of Freshly Forged under the attack. In that short lane, Kalas has to burn the ultimate, and he's going to dash himself out as well. One more jump from Johnny is all they need, and he goes down. Tier 2 Tower is going to do the same. That's a great turn of events there for Belt Slap, with the Phoenix on the right side now exposed.
Worth noting, though, that Zyrhoes does burn the Purification Beads to try and secure that kill on Kalas, so there's something that Freshly Forged might be able to work off of. Check out the Erendite, by the way, by Faeles. This isn't the item that you want it to be on Bastet. It doesn't proc until your ultimate goes on cooldown, which is after the cats disappear. So it is good in one sense, where you get a huge window where you're very effective, but not, incredibly effective all at once like you might have wanted.
You talk about a window, and that's what Trixtank cleaned off there for Belt Slap. Drops down the pillars. Freshly Forged move themselves away, and that's right side Phoenix now down. And you got so much time left on this FG buff. I mean, you got almost 3 full minutes. This is going to be tier 2 towers, likely 2 exposed Phoenixes. That's the big turn of events. You promised big fireworks eventually in those FG fights, and those graphs at the bottom, they show some big ones.
Yeah, this is the one that it's tough to really end up turning back around for Freshly Forged. I mean, they've got that late game Bastet, that's very difficult to deal with. They've got the late game Scylla, another very potent pick. But they have to really stagger their initiations well. They need to be going in at the right times. If a carry can use Aegis on both Pounce and Crush at the same time, that's a really easy way to lose the game for Freshly Forged. That is a small thing to lose the game for. But that's kind of the bearer of bad news. Hate to be the bearer of bad news, but that's kind of the reality of the situation, is that you have to put yourself in that position now, because Belt Slap is just that far ahead. Kali can easily split off the middle. I love this. But make sure that you have someone sitting there that can keep on pushing up, because no one can 1v1 her.
Yeah, sorry, you hear me laughing. It's almost comical how fast Johnny is attacking here. I mean, completely clears waves in the matter of seconds, and with the Hasten Katana, you'll be sticking on that back line and likely melting anyone that he's able to jump on. There's been enough kind of anti-dive, though, from Belt Slap that have prevented Faeles from really finding much more off that early game lead. Deathwalker's going to jump back behind his Phoenix, but we talked about the junglers needing to make a difference, and Johnny, he's moved himself to a more attractive slash line.
8-1, Kali, that's impressive.
Julio, he finds himself under the left side. Phoenix caged down from Deathwalker. Zyrhoes gonna poke away just a little bit of damage here. Stunned down his Trixtank. Spirit of the 9 Winds ready. Might not need it though, as Joshy, he goes down. Left side Phoenix, it's gonna fall as well. 1 member down for 60 seconds. Titan potentially under attack here. Aggro, they've got enough damage. Titan is gonna fall here, and it looks like Belt Slap are gonna take game number 1.
Well, it's looking close though, Dave. Prime putting up a good defense.
I wouldn't lead you astray. Come on.
Not enough. I know, Dave. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have questioned you, man. Easy end there for Belt Slap. And look, a lot of things went pretty well that team fight. That was Deathwalker's best cage of the game by a mile, but Phantom was up as it should be for Trixtank in that sort of moment. Johnny's able to really get into that back line quickly and make quick work of Joshy and force Prime out of that fight all at once. You take your chances going to 30 minutes, 35 minutes with Kali, and she's going to make you pay the majority of the time.
Well, a brief moment where I was able to kind of bring up the junglers there at the end. Johnny, maybe the most outstanding slash line there, 9-1-2. The early game, Kali, they both had 2 kills, Faeles and Johnny. But it's that Kali in the late game that finds the majority of the kills and some good plays for his team.
And look, Prime had a solid game on the Scylla. He put out a good amount of damage, was able to get good damage on a Julio in a couple engagements. Really, it was just that Trixtank was so much more effective than Kalas. And part of that, it was certainly the God selections. Frontliners struggle greatly against that Ganesh. The Ganesh was not only good against Kalas, that's one of Ganesh's better matchups, is that Kumbhakarna, because a lot of the things that he does are pretty slow. And of course, it's good against the Bastet. but it was just a solid pick by Trixtank, and he played it really, really well. I think Trix basically carried the early game for Belt Slap and just held the ball long enough to pass it off to Dzoni whenever he was ready to carry.
I mean, we figured that this one, I mean, I don't know if we'd call it a blowout, but we figured that Belt Slap is easily the favored team in this one.
Yeah.
I mean, Freshly Forged, maybe it's one of those where it's like it's not quite as close as it appeared in that early game, but they hung in there the first 20 or so minutes of that game.
I mean, Faeles had a couple good ganks on Arkkyl. No one was able to really do anything off of it, though. Right. No buff invades. That was kind of the problem. That was better for Freshly Forged. I think that was a better performance from them than we've seen as a whole, but clearly not good enough. Right. Never for a little bit did I feel like Freshly Forged had a really good stranglehold on the game. It always felt like it was even at best in their favor.
Yeah, better, but not quite enough to best Belt Slap here in game number 1. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we've got Belt Slap versus Freshly Forged, game 2. Well, welcome back for game number 2 between Freshly Forged and Belt Slap. My name is Dolson. Agro's still with me. A noted distinct lack of Mackenzie, though, this time around.
Yeah.
A bit unfortunate.
Listen, I think the patio door is open. It's a nice day outside, and she probably smelled some dogs or something like that. I'm surprised that. Have you guys heard her barking at all? Because she was kind of popping off in the middle of that last game.
Well, I mean, big fights from Belt Slap is probably enough to make her pop off, right? She's a Smite fan with the rest of us. Let's jump into picks and bans, though, for game number 2 and see maybe how these teams adapt some of their play styles. And notably, I kind of look, I mean, I think you have to, the junglers in the last pick and ban phase, the Kali and the Bastet, both similar mindsets, and Belt Slap was able to get it done at the end of the day. So I wonder if maybe jungle priority starts to swap here in picks and bans.
Certainly could be. I just want to see Freshly Forged try and get an early game sort of composition drafted, because they played fairly well in the early game. They had that invade on purple buff at level 1. They got a couple kills onto Arkkyl. I'm trying to get something for Faeles that ganks duo well. Arkkyl has historically kind of struggled when a lot of pressure is put on his lane. Yeah. So maybe you can try and find some pressure points there. Set Joshy up for some success. Joshy had a very strong game on the Ullr earlier on today. That wasn't a win for Freshly Forged, but I think Joshy individually looked pretty strong. So that's where I'd like to see Freshly Forged go at the very least. Try and put some pressure on that duo lane side.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least, right? I mean, Arkkyl, he was all of the deaths early on in that game, and you could tell there was just a lot of presence there. And that was kind of the ticket in, I think, for Freshly Forged in that last game. Just weren't able to punch it and get on the ride to the win there. So both Slap well played that time around. They're going to stick with the Kukulkan, though. I think Zyrhoes had some big ultimates to kind of peel off some of those early fights, especially in those early to mid parts of the game where it's still largely pretty close. I like them going back to the Kuku here.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Zyrhoes is looking comfortable on this god. He was able to put out some solid damage and follow up nicely with what was happening with Trixtank and his setup. So I think this is a fine first pick. I like the idea that Joshy takes away that Jing way, but Dodgy is not a god that I think of when I think early game. She's definitely a late game assassin. It's all about getting that late game for her. That being said, 3 non-CC immune ultimates for Belt Slap is critical. That means that Dodgy has great opportunities here. And if Belt Slap don't ban Ares, that's where I'd be going for Kalas as well. It's great against Ullr. It's great against Kali. You can really set them behind pretty quickly. And I think that I'd be surprised if Belt Slap don't ban it, because that's another typical Kalas god. Kalas obviously demands a lot of respect. 3 bans to him already in the Guardian pool. I mean, he's really, really good at the gods. He plays well, but I think the one criticism of that god pool has been it's not particularly deep at times. It's very strong, but not always deep. Surprised the Kumbhakarna ban. I would love to see an Ares pick here for Kalas. I think it's sick.
I mean, we're going to have to see how deep some of those Guardian pools are. Is Ganesha banned out, Khepri, Kumbhakarna as well, and Belt Slap, they're going to opt for the Sobek here for themselves. I mean, at this point, it's a 0% pick. I mean, it's kind of the first week, so I think stats reset for us. So the first instance of the Sobek that we'll see, but not really, even if you look back at qualifying, someone that we saw that way.
Man, Belt Slap's comp is looking strong, though, Dave. I mean, they've got a lot of CC, on this composition and good mobility as well for basically everybody. But this is a clean Ares pick here from Kalas, man. If this isn't an Ares, I'm trolling or he's trolling or something, because it's looking too good at this point to go with anything else in my mind. It is risky up against Sobek, Guan. Those are 2 gods that typically punish Ares fairly well because of his inability to get a lot of mobility there. Xing really good. Xing the best Guardian in the game right now. I don't think there's any doubt about that to me. This is an Ares pick for Kalas 100% of the time. I am shocked that he doesn't go for the Ares.
Well, the only ones trolling are production hovering the Ares for you, and it is Xing.
As usual. They're
certainly not a
all
bad
time,
Guardian, but
really
an
good
one for Freshly Forged to pivot over to. Game number 2 about to get underway here. And Aggro, I am curious as we look towards maybe that long lane. You talk about early game lockdown between a Sobek and an Ullr. That's going to be, you kind of have to play smart around those two.
You do. It's good that there's a Jing there for Joshy because Sobek is not great against Jing at all. You get your charge prey, you're like, yes, I hit my hard to hit skill shot that puts me out of position, but at least their carry is in my back. Oh, he's flying over my head and he's out. Like that's not exactly where you want that pick to be. You're really picking this Sobek for peeling away Dodgy, though that isn't great either. I just don't love the Sobek pick in particular. I would have loved to see Trixtank pick up Xing for himself, and I understand why the Xing pick for Kalas. I do think it's a good pick here. If it were any other support players, save maybe PBM, I would have said that Xing is the perfect pick. But Ares is the Kalas god. That was his one trick, so to speak, before Athena, before Fafnir. That was what he really made his name on, so I'm just shocked that he doesn't go to him.
I think you kind of get the idea of the way that this lane might go, with both supports just kind of ignoring one another and whacking away some damage onto the enemy hunter here. Interestingly enough, Trixtank did pick up the Hand of the Gods and didn't use it on that purple buff, so something he may be able to use later on to try to find some secure stun down onto Kalas, but not enough lockdown or damage to find first blood. But that's that early game in this long lane that we were a little bit wary of.
This is kill potential to the max in the duo lane for sure. You've got great opportunity to kill just about anybody besides Jing. But even still, Trixtank's able to force Joshy back. You can see that Trix knows exactly how that engagement's going. As soon as he gets the pluck, he doesn't turn around to try and keep the CC chain going, as you'll see most Sobek players do. He knows that Joshy's coming right back to where he swung from. That's good experience right there from Trix.
And they're going to carve out just a little bit more of a lead, taking that Harpy away from Freshly Forged. I was able to bring up that Hand of the Gods just a little bit. Do you think that's kind of reactionary? They got invaded on their purple buff last time. Let's pick it up and make sure it's safe this time around.
Definitely. You just want to make sure that Deathwalker doesn't come over and do anything weird. And now you've got a composition. Last game it was what? Jing, Ganesha. You're not taking a whole lot of fights there, even if you have Hand of the Gods. So I'm not surprised that they gave it up last time around. With Ullr Sobek, you can stand and brawl for a little bit. You've got really good CC and kill potential, so you can take fights a little bit better. I like Trix's decision to hang on to the Hand of the Gods. If you don't need it right now, we can speed up our clear on this next purple buff. You can get there pretty quickly and then get right back to pressuring lane. You can always sell it. You don't necessarily, it's not a waste just because they didn't invade you.
Well, it's something to be mindful of. Does use it there on that purple buff, so probably there just for early game safety, and they're going to get themselves back a little faster. Maybe even open the door to try to contest the Freshly Forged purple buff here as Trixtank gets aggressive, actually blinks in. He's not able to quite find what he was looking for there. Just a little bit of duress for Freshly Forged, but no kill on the board just yet. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised. You know, we have seen Ullr in the mid lane a decent bit, but that Mage's Blessing, not all that uncommon to see picked up on the Ullr.
No, he wants that ability to get more mana. Hunter's Blessing is often actually more mana for you effectively, but still you get that extra bonus damage on a whole bunch of your different buttons that really make a difference in your kill potential. Getting that extra CDR is really, really important for Ullr, so he can really get to you get to 30% as soon as you finish off, or 20% rather, as soon as you finish off that Transcendence. That's pretty important for him. You're looking to do the majority of your damage with your abilities on Ullr, at least in the early game, so that's why you should end up going with this Mage's Blessing in my mind. It's really it's not a question of Hunter's Blessing versus Mage's Blessing for Ullr. It's, do I want Trans 2 or Trans 1 with Mage's Blessing?
Watch out, Arkkyl didn't have the secondary stun just yet, but he's got the lead and he's got first blood onto Joshy. The potential finally realized for Belt Slap there, and they grabbed themselves first blood in this game.
I don't know what went wrong there for Joshy. I just know that he used the dash too early. Trixtank identified that easily. and ended up picking him up with that charged prey. And Joshy was too late and didn't use the purification beads. Good choice to not use the purification beads midair. We don't want to have a boost beads alert from the home studios, but still not exactly where you want to be. That should not have been first blood for Belt Slap. A little bit of a misplay there from Joshy.
And you know, Ullr has kind of been few and far between as well. I mean, Jing, I would say, effectively pick banned in most of the games. Maybe more on that in just a moment. Julio is low, but he's going to use his ultimate. The cavalry is here. 3 members rotate. Oh! Deleted! Deathwalker, you blinked, you missed it. And he blinked just for a second as Arkkyl finds his second kill of this game by that purple buff. Things have gone from bad to worse, and a blink of an eye here for Freshly Forged.
Beautiful CC chain by that right side of the map here for Belt Slap. That was absolutely perfect. And then Arkkyl is starting to feel it. These are the 2 versions of Arkkyl. He's either doing what he did in game 1 or doing this. And those are the only 2 versions.
That's the chain onto Trixtank, and that's enough to pull that Sobek back. So silver lining amongst this storm for Freshly Forged is they're able to get Faeles on the board. It's kind of what we saw last time, though, as he was able to get a few kills. And although his slash line was good at the end of game number 1, wasn't quite able to help his team convert it into a win. But nonetheless, gonna get the kill onto Trixtank and a kill onto that Dodgy.
I like it. I mean, get anything going in your favor because, as you mentioned, it was starting to look pretty grim pretty quickly for Freshly Forged. In the blink of an eye on the left and right sides of the map, you get a kill under the belt of Faeles, get your late game assassin closer to that very, very potent late game. Dodgy, one of the few guys that can actually win a fight up against Kali later on. You have to play it pretty cleanly. You gotta cancel your 2, pre-beads the stun, make sure you're auto-canceling properly, but it's possible.
Oh, Trixtank's got a nice double knockup and lockdown onto Faeles, who still does not have his ultimate, so no immunity for him. Just for a second, spinning around 1 is Callus. He won't have his ultimate for the team fight that might start to burn out here. And suddenly, 3 members of Belt Slap looking to collapse. Dash just short for Trixtank. And now he's out of position. 5 members strong for Freshly Forged. A bit of peel from Zyrhoes, thanks to the Spirit of the 9 Winds. But Deathwalker, so close to that transformation, he's going to look to jump in here. Gets the knockdown. Oh, the stun, not enough damage. And the dash from Trixtank is enough to keep him alive. Good shot from Deathwalker. The damage wasn't quite there.
Julio doing quite a bit of damage himself. Too early on that ultimate by Deathwalker. Mistimes his CC immunity, and Julio picks up a kill on the enemy solo laner once again. Always forget about how much damage Cavalry Charge does, but Guan swings, dude. I mean, yeah, I know Johnny was there for the cleanup, but that is that was tough to end up taking that much damage there, and a bit unlucky for Deathwalker to not get that kill on the Trixtank, and the reinforced greaves pickup for Trix. Absolutely massive there. That stacked up bit of protection ended up being very, very important from those reinforced boots. And the fact that the CCR was there helped him as well.
I mean, that is pure calculation from Trixtank, and if you disagree, I won't hear anything of it.
Right, that's peak support performance. You might not like what it looks like, but it's reality.
Right, that's peak support right there. And the number 1 remains is the number in his death column. Didn't go up to 2 that time. Belt Slap still up 4-1, 2k gold lead, so a little bit worse off at this point in this game compared to game 1 where they were still about 1,000 down at this point. So Belt Slap off to a great start here. And I kind of want to touch on Julio on that Guan Yu just a little bit. We don't really see that all that often in that solo lane, but we saw it there, and it had a pretty big impact on those fights. What do you kind of expect from him?
I love Guan. I think that he really gets underplayed. It's not always easy to find the right spot for him, because even though the change to give him a cleave on the auto attack chain, they really wanted to make him less reliable on Talu Assault clearing the wave. Still feels pretty bad if you get your Talu Assault interrupted, but players have gotten so good at using him and using him effectively. I think that he's a strong pick.
Watch out, Callus, though. He's locked down by Johnny here. The flick back into the Spirit of the 9 Winds won't connect, but Zyrhoes gets the kill nonetheless. Fails. Takes to the skies, up to the pillar he goes, dashes down actually, looking for the kill on the Zyrhoes, who's dancing back behind the Harpies, and he gets out alive. Johnny is here to save the day. PrettyPriMe, he's looking nervous real quick as Arkkyl is gonna jump on in. PrettyPriMe melted. Kill number 7 on the board, looking like it's 58 here aggro. Joshy uses the active, not enough to keep him alive there. He goes back to base as well.
Man, at the end of the day, Faeles just has to land shots.
Wait, he lives.
You just got to do it. There's no other option. You know Zyrhoes doesn't have beads. If he pulls him in, it pulls him into Merlin damage. You get a lot of damage off actually hitting the pull on Powwow. That connect damage that you get whenever they slam into the pillar is actually way higher than you probably think it is. And Faeles just whiffs 3 shots. And you got to give him some credit because, or Zero some credit. Good jukes by him and a lot of extra movement speed on that slither, but that whole fight goes poorly because Faeles gets really, really overextended. It pulls everyone back. It makes everyone stick around a little bit longer. And Arkkyl has just been really, really accurate so far today on this video.
Well, I stand corrected. Joshy was able to get out thanks to the beads, but that does, leave maybe a question in the mind. So we've kind of reached the point of the game where both of the hunters have just kind of been left alone in that long lane. There's always going to be that solo potential there, but you look for the next 90 seconds, Joshy's going to get locked down by Arkkyl if he finds even a little bit of an opening, and you almost wonder if that's something that Belt Slap will kind of look to push.
Absolutely. I don't think that Arkkyl is going to need a whole lot of help in that department, though. I mean, he's 2 levels up on Ullr. He's up. He's got his Transcendence fully stacked. It is on Balance Blade. Joshy has 3 Devourer's Gauntlet stacks. That is a massive difference in power, not even to bring up the actual characters they're playing and how much more power Arkkyl has in this stage of the game just based on the kit alone. This is a scary position for Joshy. He's got to have his finger hovered over that airstrike button.
Arkkyl finds himself a great pick here. Joshy does move himself out, doesn't have to burn the ultimate here. 45 seconds left on those beads. But as I kind of figured, and you sort of reinforced there, you can see where they kind of want to turn their attention here. Tier 1 tower still standing in the long lane. But Joshy, I'm a little bit nervous if I'm him for the next 30 or so seconds, but still a gank set up. Blink in from Trixtank, doesn't quite get the dash off, so Faeles still safe for the time being. Does have the ultimate if he needs to use it for some disengage, and that's what we see here. Chain number 1 connects on the Trixtank, but CC immunities, he goes underground, so no kills from the fruition just yet. But Faeles does use the ultimate. That is down now as Johnny is looking to move right back around the backside. Faeles, he might be looking free, dashes to his team. Johnny finds the final kill. Arkkyl, he has to airstrike out. But look at the rest of Freshly Forged. They're rotating right back through.
This has got to be killed for Freshly Forged. That's how you get back in the game, is killing Arkkyl, who wants to at least take 1 more with him. He does, but he falls.
They take 1 to the grave, but Johnny, he is plenty healthy here, and Faeles, he's quite the opposite. Kill number 3 for Johnny goes on the board. This is not nearly as close as the jungle matchup was in game number 1. Kali hit hard towards the end. Kali is hitting hard early here in game number 2.
3, 0, and 5 for him. Only 1 and 2 for Faeles. Again, not accurate enough with that ultimate, trying to pull Johnny back. At least getting his beads would have been a big deal in that fight, but missed again.
Well, I look towards Johnny. I mean, is that sort of where you pivot now if you're Belt Slap? Do you kind of play around this Kali? I mean, 3-0-5. A lot of the engage has been there for Johnny in a lot of these fights.
Maybe. It's still not her strongest point in the game, even with a lead. I think that going through Arkkyl is better still.
Right. It's 4-1 and 2, so that Ullr is going to be hitting plenty hard here. Fury taken down by Belt Slap there to carve now a 5k lead out for themselves, and not quite the same dance that we saw in game number 1 where the teams were slightly cautious to move in and engage. I think Belt Slap have enough of a lead here that they'll take about anything they can find.
5k lead at 13 minutes, you're definitely looking for any engagement the enemy team can give you, or not even give you. You're grouping around Furies, going towards Pyromancers. Wherever Arkkyl is going to be, that's where all of Belt Slap should be. And that's kind of, I know I highlighted maybe the lowlights at times of Arkkyl during picks and bans. That's certainly a part of the game. But the reason that he's so highly respected is because he also has games where he looks like the best ADC in the world. And he does things like this to you on a regular basis.
Jing has plenty of damage to turn around, but not enough that time to grab the kill. Faeles melted by Belt Slap here, so that Xing, we expect impact out of that Guardian and have found anything but here as he moves to 0-4 on the game. A good collapse there from Belt Slap in the mid lane.
I mean, the Xing pick, I know I already said I would have preferred the Ares. You pick Xing instead of Ares in that spot because he does a lot of the same things, but safer. As, yeah, Arkkyl gets to do that to you whenever he feels like it at this point.
When Joshy used the beads and wasn't able to escape death, PrettyPriMe flickers away, locked down. Johnny grabs the stun onto PrettyPriMe, but that's Faeles, who moves in back onto Arkkyl, who up-downs, double kill for the Kali, rampaging now. I mean, bad to worse, aggro. That seems almost like an understatement.
The Arkkyl show. That's kind of what you got now, and I don't know what Joshy is really supposed to do that differently. Maybe you don't face check jungle there at all, is the game plan. You just kind of accept the fact that he gets to do whatever he feels like doing at this point in the game, because otherwise you're going to get 2v3'd pretty quickly. This one is very different than game number 1 so far, Dave. This is kind of what we expected from Belt Slap.
No! Oh, man. Joshy. Oh, but that sucks. Locked down for the 4th time this game. Caught out just around the corner. I'll take that 30-second respawn timer here. I don't know, man. This seems like a freshly forged... We turtle up underneath our phoenixes and hope that a fire giant assault goes wrong.
That is the plan. I mean, you've got Merlin. He's one of the best defensive mages when he has his ability to put out damage and CC over the wall. You've got Jing, who is hard to dive whenever she gets items. That's about it. That's all I got for you, Dave. Normally I try and do things that's like the way that comedy usually goes.
Right.
I did not have barrel.
Well, Freshly Forged has 3 towers and...
Ooh, I thought of a third.
All right, go ahead.
Ullr is not very good when sieging, because he has to stay in bow stance in order to deal damage from a distance on the Phoenix, but has to switch to axe stance to jump. That's a bad trait, and that's the third. We got it.
Yeah, but how about an Ullr that is 5 levels above his counterpart and nobody contesting the right-hand side?
Yeah, that makes that weakness less of a problem.
An inherent weakness, but not quite as big.
No, there's a big difference between inherent weakness and being up 5 levels. And the inherent weakness doesn't matter when you're up 5 levels. Any God and Smite will win with a 5 level. It doesn't matter.
Well, this is a great play, I think, by Belt Slap. They're just going to delay the backs of 4 members of Freshly Forged. You may lose this fight, but if you can just delay them getting back to base, this is going to be a free Phoenix on the right-hand side for Belt Slap. Gonna be able to knock up a couple here. Johnny is right back in on the engagement. You might get a Phoenix and you might find some kills. Faeles, takes to the sky. FF is started here from Freshly Forged. FF completed. And that's maybe the easy way out here as Belt Slap takes the game and takes the set.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. That game's pretty much over. That's a 1% sort of win chance there for Freshly Forged. They had the set earlier today. You can imagine there's some frustration there for that team after losing their set earlier. And then a long game 1, and then just getting steamrolled here in game number 2. Like I said at the very top, I mean, this Freshly Forged team, I know everyone's going to be excited about them. They've got premier names, PrettyPriMe, one of the best mids of all time. Deathwalker right up there with him among solo laners. Everyone else at SPL pedigree. This team is not good right now. They just aren't with the way that they're playing. Eventually, they've got potential to be very, very good. But I don't think that you can watch the way this team plays the game right now and feel confident about them winning week in and week out. I think that they should be going into every match as the underdog right now. Maybe there's 1 or 2 teams, just F6, has some things to learn still. But I don't know. I think Freshly Forged is right there and one of the teams that has the most to work on in the SCC in Europe.
What do we learn in physics? Potential energy versus like kinetic energy. Yeah. They're on the top of the half pipe right now with all the potential. And
he puts on the glasses and starts talking physics to me. What is this? I can't handle this.
Yeah, let me clean him off here. Oh God, stab me in the ear. It was a great day though. Honestly, I think that second game though is what we expected out of Belt Slap. I think Freshly Forged hanging in so closely in game 1 is, I think, what you have to take away from this one. I think you just have to maybe take the bad of game 2, but this is a tough day for Freshly Forged to kind of regroup from, I think.
I agree. I mean, a lot of this roster were at least PrettyPriMe there. It was that out cold roster last year. We kept saying, okay, they'll turn it on eventually. Seriously, like any day now, it's going to happen. And then it never did for that team until the very end. And they ended up making it to the placements. This region in this league of the Smite Challenger Circuit is stronger than even that of the Smite Minor League last year.
Yeah.
You will not have that amount of time to actually understand how to play the game the right way. I think that this is a team that's going to have to put the effort in sooner rather than later and can't expect the same results as last year.
Well, it was a 3-0 day here. 2-0 day. A day of 2-0s. Oh my goodness. We're really
We
getting
got there, Dave. Set 3 was also a
SCC
2-0.
set 3 2-0. Unfortunately,
Nice.
freshly forged, they grabbed 2 of those 2-0s. Hey, make sure to come back tomorrow. We've got the NA SCC starting up for you. Same time, 1 p.m. Eastern time, same places. On behalf of myself, Aggro, everyone back in production making this work. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Peach it.